We are set to focus on this issue of water safety or allegations regarding water safety in the Kingston and St. Andrew area. The opposition People's National Party are raising questions that the water could be contaminated. Those claims were made by first the junior spokesman on health, Jesse James Clark. I think he said there was fecal contamination. And then the opposition spokesperson on water, Ian Hales. Yeah, he is called on the NWC to be transparent and to release their tests. Well, the NWC is categorically rejecting as false and misleading the recent statements by the opposition spokesperson on water regarding the safety and reliability of the nation's water supply.
And it says it's assuring customers in urban and rural Kingston and St. Andrew areas, as well as those in the wider nation, that the water supplied by the Commission remains safe for consumption. Or operations adhere strictly to the guidelines set by the Ministry of Health and Wellness and the World Health Organization to ensure the highest standards of water quality and safety, says the National Water Commission.
Its acting corporate public relations manager is Delano Williams, and he's with us now. Good evening, Mr. Williams.
Good evening, sir.
Hi, gentlemen. Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Joined you a little bit late.
All right, that's fine. Let me just be clear. You're saying that there's absolutely no truth to the allegations that the water supply being provided by the NWC is contaminated.
What we're saying is that we're not seeing cases of any contamination. Those are our readings. The second thing is what is being presented as fecal coliform is in fact a representation of general or what is called total coliform. There is a separate test that is done to show fecal coliform. And so the concern that would have been raised with the public is what we are seeking to allay, and also to highlight why we stand on the fact that our water is safe, in that where we have adverse readings of any kind relating to water quality, the steps that we take are immediate and thorough in terms of sanitizing any section of our facility or network, retesting before we restart any water supply distribution.
Mr. Williams, I think we need to explain. What do we mean by fecal coliform versus general coliform?
So, well, I did say general, but the correct term is total. So, coliform is a natural occurring bacteria which can be found in the soil, in vegetation. It's a large blanket group of it. Whenever there is an occurrence of it, what we find, Cliff, is generally in rural systems, you may have more practices on the banks of rivers which filter into this, what we call surface sources, right? So wash off from farming activities, domestic activities, which transfer, or just clearing of land like splash and burn activities. Now, these import nutrients into the water, which could be coliform. So the reports we present show instances when the water may have some of those. All right? Now, those are the general reports we present to the KSAMC, and in fact to any municipal corporation, because we are providing full disclosure. Now, if and when we see an occurrence of that, we do a further test to look for fecal matter. And we have seen far less instances of those. Out of January, there were 2 sole incidents out of 208 samples. And I'm talking not 2 over the space of a month, like 2 single days. And over the period of February, there were 6 instances out of a total of 300 plus samples, which we then immediately respond to treat with. And I want to give you an illustration of how quickly we treat with matters. Now, on Saturday, just to show you how systematic we operate, we picked up on our Rio Cobra system, moving a little bit from KSA into St. Catherine, on our Rio Cobra system, we picked up that the water coming to the facility may have had readings that were above what is normally treatable and safe for public consumption.
That is
we immediately shut
readings
the plant down.
of fecal coliform.
Not in this case,
But
but just generally a pollutant. So we would have taken our what we call raw water readings, and then we followed through in terms of treating with those matters immediately. So we clean the intake of the facility, and then we move from there to retest before we restart any water supply distribution.
So give us a timeline. When did you do that?
So this is over the weekend. We did that on Saturday.
On Saturday, having picked up the readings when?
Early Saturday morning. Early Saturday morning, and by mid-morning we had shut down. We continued to monitor the readings throughout into Sunday before we restarted.
So by shutdown, you restricted the water supply so that you could monitor the situation?
So, right. So effectively, there is no water coming into the system. Now, the rural system, some of them are a little different because even along the network, we also have to track it for any kind of intrusion that may occur. So what we do, we test both at the facilities. We also take samples along the network. But we don't stop there. We follow also the guidelines from the Ministry of Health and Wellness because they are our regulatory body in terms of water quality and wastewater quality operations. They take independent tests and samples, and in the event that there were any adverse or prolonged issues, then they would therefore take the steps necessary to, for instance, issue a boiled water advisory.
Right. How often are these tests conducted?
We take samples daily, literally take samples from every facility on a daily basis. Across what we call the Eastern Division, we take over 2,000 samples on a monthly basis. And this is because we recognize, for instance, again, while you have well sources which are fairly predictable, 2/3 of our systems are surface sources, river sources, spring sources, and any kind of activity can change, and they are dynamic. The other thing we do in terms of monitoring is that for our rural systems, we have what are called static operators, meaning a man or a woman is stationed there throughout the day to monitor inflows and water supply operations versus some plants that are automated where we check them periodically throughout the course of the day. And that is the level of rigorous follow-through that we're aiming to do.
Yeah.
Now,
Go ahead, finish your thought.
If I may, we're not saying there isn't more work to do, because when you look at the environmental factors, Sir Cliff, listeners, there is always a risk from just the human activity around the facilities. And so the public education, looking at new technologies, introducing new equipment at the plant that helps us to treat with these issues. All of these are stuff that we continue to do. Those are short, medium to long term. But the immediate steps are why we stand on our statement that the water supply that we provide is safe, because where we have adverse readings, the steps we take to safeguard water supply, whether it's simply just to shut down and sterilize, it means that the water does not get to the residents.
Yeah. Delano, Jesse James Clark, the junior opposition spokesman on health, he seemed to be suggesting in the video I saw that he had done his own tests and he had the samples. Do you know whether those samples that he's claiming to have observed this contamination, in the purported contamination, was it shared with the commission? Do you know?
Well, like I said to you, we provide the readings and the instances. So we literally disclose where we pick up readings that are of good quality and where we pick up readings that are not of great quality. right? What the report shows are all of those situations, our total samples and also the total number of the samples that missed the mark.
No, man, I
Is it
understand
their
that.
sample
Right.
he was
So they
quoting
had
from?
our report.
Oh,
they had
it was
our
you-
report. How it was interpreted, it was
Oh.
interpreted as fecal coliform.
Oh,
Which
so it was
is why
your
I
report.
made the distinction that the report does not represent fecal coliform. It's showing total coliform.
And this is an important clarification because
Yes.
another media house reported that he had done his own testing. And based on his testing, he was raising these concerns. I mean, I know that they've since deleted the video with him making these claims. So the report that he's quoting, you're saying, came from the NWC.
The report that we presented shows, so I don't know if at any instance he may have quoted from another report. The report we present shows, as I said, full disclosure of the realities of
Yes.
harnessing water, treating water from all our sources. And as I said, the challenges that are accompany those kind of operations. It shows total coliform, what it so there. It was what I'm seeing presented in the public space is that these numbers represent fecal coliform, and that would be inaccurate.
And this report was shared with the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation.
Yeah, we do visit as per invitation. We do visit. We present on the work that we do in all of our operations because that the municipal provides an oversight on some of the same areas that we administer water to.
Okay. And so the takeaway this evening, Delano, is that you can assure Jamaicans, especially those in the Kingston and St. Andrew area, that the water is safe.
Yes, right? We are not going to deny that there are challenges, all right? Some systems are rural. When I say rural, I mean you have to cross gullies to get to the facilities. There are some places that were very small, like they only served just maybe a family, and then it extended into maybe 30, 40 homes. So we are still having to trek across very rough terrain to get some facilities. And so even the infrastructure that is there, ideally you would want them to look very pristine, but the work it takes is a progressive one. And we are up to the challenge. We have been making those changes. But in the meantime, what we do immediately is when we see adverse findings, we respond immediately.
Yeah. Delano Williams, thank you so much. Appreciate the clarification.
Thank you for having me.
You see, Cliff, that's why it's so important that we in media do our work properly, because when the caption I saw in the video, when I watched the video, it said, having done numerous tests, that the junior spokesman was making claims about fecal contamination. And my first reaction was, what? And so I watched the video, and oh boy, the caption suggested he had done some independent testing. And so I don't know if you saw my message in the group. I was asking, what are his qualifications to do these tests?
Yeah, I saw that message.
And my next question was, what did the media house do in terms of follow-up to find out from the Ministry of Health, Public Health Department, what is the true situation? So the report was actually provided to the local authority.
As in the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation. By the NWC.
So they weren't hiding anything. So the call from Mr. Ian Hales for them to release information, they already released it. That's how you were able to make much ado about nothing.